Some mysteries, they're more than just unsolved cases. They're these strange events that seem to just tear a hole in the fabric of what we think is reality. We're talking about people and planes and ships that disappear so suddenly, so completely, that every logical explanation we have just falls apart. So let's dive into that chilling silence they all left behind. Just try to imagine this for a second. You're a pilot, thousands of feet above the ocean, and everything is normal. Then you grab the radio, and your last haunting words are, "The sky is opening up," before you and your plane are just gone. That was the final message from pilot Hiroshi Komakoto, right before he vanished over the Dragon's Triangle, this notorious patch of ocean south of Japan. And then, of course, there's the infamous Flight 19, an entire squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that flew into the Bermuda Triangle and never came out. Their leader, a really experienced pilot, gets on the radio, totally confused, saying, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right." And after that, nothing. Just radio silence. 5 planes, 14 men, poof, gone. These aren't just spooky stories, you see. They're echoes of something really strange happening in our world. But what's really wild is that these modern mysteries, they aren't new at all, not even close. They're really just the latest chapter in a very, very old story of bizarre events. These strange echoes, they stretch back for centuries, long before we ever had airplanes or radios to hear them cry for help. Okay, let's rewind the clock, way back. We're going to 1561 in Nuremberg, Germany. Hundreds of people, an entire city, looked up at the morning sky and saw what they could only describe as a battle. I mean, we have woodcuts and pamphlets from the time describing red and black spheres and crosses just zipping around erratically, fighting each other for over an hour. They said there was thick smoke, and the whole terrifying thing only stopped when a giant black spear-like object appeared in the sky. This wasn't just one person's weird dream. It was a massive, documented event. Now let's jump forward a bit to the 1940s, to a little place called Portlock, Alaska. This was a thriving little village full of loggers and fishermen, and then one day, they just left. The whole town packed up and abandoned their homes. So why would they do that? Well, a string of gruesome discoveries, mutilated bodies, people vanishing in the woods, it was all blamed on a creature the locals called the Nantinak. There were eyewitnesses who described this huge hairy beast that would stalk and attack people. One story even claims it ripped a huge tree trunk out of the ground and threw it. By 1950, Portlock was officially a ghost town. So let's just recap here. We've got a sky battle with strange objects in the 1500s, a whole town in Alaska that becomes a ghost town in the 20th century because of some terrifying creature, and a missing squadron of advanced Navy planes. On the surface, these things have absolutely nothing in common, right? Different centuries, different continents, totally different situations. But what if they do? What if they're all just different pieces of the same giant, terrifying puzzle? Because when you really start to dig in, when you look closer at these bizarre events, and dozens more just like them, a really disturbing pattern starts to emerge from all the chaos. And the pattern, it's all in the tiny details, the little reoccurring clues that witnesses and investigators have reported over and over and over again. It just seems impossible, right? I mean, what in the world could possibly connect a sky battle from the 1500s with a flight crew that disappeared in 1945? The answer, it turns out, might not be a who or a what, but a where. It's not about a culprit, it's about the location itself. Let's look at the common threads. In the Flight 19 case, the pilots reported that both of their compasses, their primary and their backup, were failing. They were just spinning wildly. The eyewitness accounts from Nuremberg and a really similar event that happened in Basel, Switzerland, they specifically mention strange things happening around the sun. And in almost every single one of these cases, the disappearances are sudden, they are total, and they happen in these very specific, notorious spots around the globe. Now, this global pattern of weirdness, it led to one researcher to come up with a really radical theory. A theory that suggests these aren't just random, tragic accidents. They're actually predictable events, all caused by unseen forces that are concentrated in these specific zones all across our planet. Okay, so let me introduce you to the man behind the idea, Ivan T. Sanderson. And listen, this guy wasn't some crackpot writing from his basement. He was a respected British biologist, a naturalist. He spent his life traveling the globe studying plants and animals. And on all those travels, he started to notice something. He noticed that all these reports of strange disappearances, of weird phenomena, they weren't random. They were clustered. They kept happening in the same spots. And all that data led him to create what he called the Vile Vortices Theory. Sanderson mapped it all out and identified 12 specific areas on Earth, all spaced out symmetrically, where he claimed the planet's electromagnetic and gravitational fields get, well, weird, warped, unstable. All those famous places we talk about, like the Bermuda Triangle and the Alaska Triangle, they're just 2 of these 12 vortexes. He basically believed these zones were weak spots, little hiccups in the fabric of our reality. Now, to really wrap your head around this theory, we got to do a super quick crash course on 2 of the most fundamental forces that control everything in our universe. They're totally invisible to us, but if they were to just bend even a little bit, everything we think we know could change in an instant. First up, you've got gravity. Simple enough, right? It's the universe's superglue. It's the force that keeps our feet on the ground and our planet circling the sun. Then you've got magnetism. This is the force that's generated by the Earth's spinning molten iron core, and it creates this massive, invisible shield that protects our entire planet. Okay, so here's why that magnetic shield is so important. It's basically Earth's armor. It protects us from all kinds of harmful solar radiation, and for hundreds of years, it's been the foundation for all navigation, right? A compass needle points north because it's literally aligning itself with this gigantic planetary force field. It's how birds and whales find their way across the entire world. But here's the thing, that field isn't perfectly smooth. Huge deposits of magnetic minerals deep underground, stuff like iron ore or magnetite, can actually disrupt it. They create what scientists call magnetic anomalies, little pockets where the field is distorted or weaker or way too strong. And boom, right there, you have a perfectly good scientific explanation for why a whole squadron of experienced pilots might suddenly yell over the radio that all their compasses are going haywire. They flew into a magnetic anomaly. So, okay, we've got a scientific reason for compasses going crazy. That makes sense. But Sanderson's theory suggests these anomalies are way more than just a pain for navigation. He believed they were just a symptom of a much deeper distortion, one that could explain not just getting lost, but vanishing off the face of the Earth. And this is where we go way down the rabbit hole. Because think about it, a broken compass might get you lost for sure, but it doesn't just delete you from existence. It doesn't make your plane or your ship vanish without a trace. So the ultimate question is still hanging there. If these vortexes are real, and they can actually bend the fundamental forces of physics, where do the people who fly into them go? To even try to answer that, we have to look at ideas from the absolute bleeding edge of physics, concepts like antimatter. Now, antimatter is basically the mirror image, the polar opposite of the normal matter that makes up you, me, this planet, everything. The laws of physics as we know them work for matter, but what about for antimatter? And here's the really critical part. When matter and antimatter touch, they don't crash, they don't explode, they annihilate each other. Poof, gone, leaving nothing but energy behind. And get this, scientists estimate that to create just 1 single gram of antimatter would cost about $62.5 trillion. That number isn't just about money, it's about showing you how incredibly alien, how powerful, and how not from our everyday world this stuff is. It proves that our universe contains states of existence where our rules just completely break down. And that leads us to the final, absolutely mind-bending possibility. Could these vile vortexes, these places where the Earth's fundamental forces are warped and twisted, be more than just magnetic quirks? Could they, just for a moment, be gateways, little temporary rips in the fabric of space-time that lead to a reality governed by a completely different physical laws, a place from which you can never come back?
So I have to ask you, what do you think? Are all these stories just a long string of tragic coincidences, stories that have been blown out of proportion over the years? Are they all just human error and bad weather? Or are there truly forces at play and places on our own planet that operate under a set of rules we have yet to even begin to understand? If you're the kind of person who loves exploring the biggest what-ifs in history and science, and you love diving deep into mysteries that challenge everything we think we know, then do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for a lot more explainers just like this one. Thanks for exploring with me.